Well, I'm not sure I read the assignment correctly because I thought it was about my journey in faith. So that's what I'm going to talk about tonight because I'm not prepared to talk about that. But anyway, good evening. My name's Sharon Rossi. Karen, my wife, and I joined the church, I think it was in October, and we love being here. So thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. Tonight I wanted to go way back on my journey with Christ and with Jesus, way back to when I was growing up. You see, my parents, they weren't rich people, they didn't have much money, but they felt it was really incredibly important to send us to Catholic school and give us not only a foundation in education to set us up for success, but also a foundation in Christ. This was very important to them. So, as it was, we went. My dad and I used to have very provocative conversations about faith and Jesus and Christianity, and all sorts of religions, in fact. He came to me, I guess I was in 7th grade. In the Catholic Church, we made our confirmation in 8th grade. And he said to me, look, I want to talk to you about this. This is your choice to follow Jesus as an adult. It's your choice to make. It's not an obligation. Your mom and I would be happy if you made your confirmation, but don't make your confirmation for me or your mom. Make it for you. Make it be the right decision for you. He then went on to tell me a story. He also went to Catholic school. And back in those days, he had to go to church every day. Now, back then, you had to fast for an hour before you took communion. I don't know if all you knew that, but they did. And so he had to get up super early because church was before school. And he said, you know what? I resented it. It was an obligation. It wasn't enjoyable. The priest was facing the wall, and he spoke in Latin, and my Latin was terrible. So he said, I never want you to go to church because it's an obligation. I want you to go because you want to go. And quite honestly, that is what has happened to me throughout my journey in Christ. I loved going to church. I loved being a Catholic. Sadly, I was a Eucharistic minister. I visited homebound, and one day I was sitting in a pew, and the priest talked about the Pope's message that if you're gay, you can come to church, but you may not take communion. So that caused me a lot of distress because here I was a Eucharistic minister visiting older people who had no other means. I'd buy their groceries, I'd do everything for them. That was a little bit beyond the true mission, but it's what I wanted to do for them. So I went to the priest and I said, hey, we have an issue. And he said, you're absolutely right, turn everything back in, don't look at me, I don't want you in my church, please don't do that. And so that began a very dark time for me. I asked Pastor Carolyn for her sermon about rejection, and it actually really helped me because I still think about it. But the best part was I discovered being a Lutheran. And, right? And I've never been happier. From the first time we were greeted at Christ Lutheran Church, was just the church we went to before we came here, we were told you are welcome. Every Sunday when I come to church here, before communion, all people are invited to the table. That means a lot. That means that not only can we be a part of this church community, but we can receive this communion together and we can be part of this incredible faith-based church also in our community. So we live here and we love it and we've never been happier. I have never been happier for sure. I wanted to get back a little bit about when I was reading the scriptures prior to coming tonight. Something stuck with me about reap what you sow. And my dad talked a lot about that. He said, you know, it's far better for you to not go to church out of obligation than it'd be better for you instead to do good for others, to always do good for others, because what goes around comes around. Always do your best. And my mom would say, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. So, yeah, that was the German in her for sure. So I also think about that because I've had some bumps along the way with my faith journey. But I remember my dad, you know, my dad sadly passed away way too young from a medical mistake. But before he died, he and my mom and my grandparents, as are Karen's grandparents and parents, were avid gardeners. They loved to garden. They taught me how to garden. And he would always say, whenever I'm not here, I want you to know when that day comes that think of me in the garden, because in the winter you may not see me, but in the springtime I will give rebirth. And I want you to think about that in relationship to Jesus and to God. You have to do work. It doesn't come easy. It's not an overnight thing. You have to work and read and just give yourself to this in the way that you will do with your garden. And in the spring, hopes the turtle, right? Things will come to life and you will know that life goes on. And I'll be there with you in the garden, and so will your mom. And so, you know, we love our garden. We've dedicated it to our moms, but every time when we tend it, as Karen would say, if we don't trim it, it's going to be a jungle, because, you know, but we tend it, we take care of it, and we love it, and it's beautiful, and it's our gift to the memory of our parents, and it's also a gift to their legacy. And so it reminds me, even during my darkest days when my mom was suffering with Alzheimer's, or especially during COVID, when, you know, just to get in the garden and get away from the hospital for a little while gave me peace as I walked in the garden. And so I'd like to leave you with a final thought. My mom always had this sign in her garden, and one of her friends, after my mom passed away, had it refurbished for me. So I'd like to read it to you because it speaks to me, because honestly, quite frankly, we all have phases when our faith may wax or wane. So this is from my mom to all of you. Sometimes when faith is running low, I walk among the flowers I grow, for among the flowers I have come to see life's miracle and mystery, and standing in silence and reverie, sorry, my faith comes flooding back to me. Thank you very much.